710 KURV Talkback. Cops on Lawrence Gelman, 1-800-580-8255, 1-800-580-TALK, streaming live on KURV, talkbackonline.com. It's my website. If you want to go check out some things, let me know how it is. I don't look at it very much. Anyway, epiphany. What is an epiphany? An epiphany is a sudden awareness, not sudden understanding of things which commonly occur. You see something that you'd not seen before, and all of a sudden an awareness comes to you. That's what an epiphany is. And I had an epiphany the other day on a certain issue, on something that I've been looking at really for quite a long period of time. I'm looking at the Republican Party, the Democrat Party, politics, state of Texas, and why things are the way they are. But I always was wondering why it is that we go along. Why are the Republicans so ineffective? Why are they so politically stupid? And I've always thought that no party could be as stupid as the Republican Party behaves, so there's probably something else going on beneath the surface. And, we're looking at these different programs such as Medicaid and Medicare, food stamps, some public education, things like that, all of which are turn people into parasites and dependency, in which the producing class is stolen from in order to benefit the parasitic class that feeds upon the producer. And, of course, the relationship between the greater parasitic class, which is the government, and the lesser parasitic class, which is all those that benefit directly and are dependent upon the government. And so I was always wondering why it was necessary for the Republicans to support these programs on the national level. I mean, why with Republican Party that calls itself conservative, that calls itself fiscally responsible, that calls itself the party of the American ideology and the constitutionalists, why does so much of what they do, why is it so completely anti-constitutional? And on the national level, apparently that was because the voters, most of whom are parasites, at least 40% are parasites, that you had to cater to the parasites on a national level in order to possibly win an election. The idea, of course, is that you cater to the parasites to get elected, and then you change the system so the parasites can become independent individuals through education, through reduction of government handouts and things like that. Well, it never really came to pass, never actually happened. The situation only seemed to get worse over time. And so it came to me, and Republicans every election would talk about that they were going to do things to improve education, to get people off of welfare, to stop abortions and all of that. And instead, they funded abortions, they funded welfare, they funded food stamps. In fact, these programs actually got bigger under Republicans as much as Democrats. So I looked at the state of Texas, and the state of Texas is a little bit different than the national level, because the national level, you're kind of stuck with the people that you have. But as far as the state is concerned, well, people can move to another state. So it occurred to me the other day, why do the Republicans in the state of Texas promote programs such as Medicaid, food stamps, public education, things such as that, which cost an enormous amount of money, which are basically take care of the parasitic class? And I was just kind of wondering why, since almost everyone on Medicaid, since almost everyone, since the majority of those in the public school system, or at least that are public school teachers and all the administrations, the people involved who receive food stamps, all the people who receive state benefits, benefits of the government, they're all Democrats. So why would you promote or sustain a program that in which the only people that participated or benefited from it were Democrats, and the people that were penalized were Republicans, or seemed to be Republicans, the people who work for a living? And so I kind of wondered about that. Why? I mean, if strictly as a political strategy, why not eliminate Medicaid, food stamps, the system of public education, and all of that? Why not just simply eliminate all of those parasitic programs and drive the parasites out of the state, drive the Democrats out of the state, convert Houston into a Republican city, convert Dallas into a Republican city, and convert San Antonio Republican city into Castro Brothers, so they would go live where they're meant to live, which is in Cuba. Why not do that? And what does it matter what the media says? What does it matter what the so-called lawyers say? Well, what does any of that matter? If you drive all your opposition's voting power out of the state and let them go become let them live off the producers of Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, New Mexico, places like that. Also, it takes care of your illegal immigration problem, doesn't it? Because then the only people who come here are people who want to work and not take advantage of the system. And then you can open the border, because they're not going to be the problem with. The problem with illegal immigration is the strain it puts on public services, public schools, the hospitals, the public welfare system. If there's no public welfare system, if there are no free health care, if there's no free education, if there's no free food, you got rid of all that, then the only people who would work in Texas would be the ones who, only people who came to Texas would be the ones who had a job. And so it seemed like it would solve all the problems for the producers, the taxpayers. It would solve all the problems. It would eliminate all the Democrat parasites, and then and therefore there'd be no more Democrats to vote for the low level of what would you say, integrity in the Democrat Party in the state of Texas. But the question is, why doesn't that happen? Well, the only reason that doesn't happen is because it must be that Republicans benefit from those programs as well. And that's the epiphany, is that the Republicans must benefit from food stamps, the Republicans must benefit from Medicaid, the Republicans must benefit from the system of public education and every other welfare program like food stamps. And the fact of the matter is that's exactly true, because the food stamp money doesn't stay in the hands of the food stamp receiver. The food stamp money ends up in the hands of large agricultural conglomerates and large grocery stores, Kroger, H-E-B, and all the rest. They benefit greatly from the food stamp program. All the other benefit programs, Medicaid, who benefits from that? Large pharmaceutical corporations, durable medical equipment companies, the fraudulent physicians and attorneys that are involved in the rehab and psychiatric businesses, which garner billions and billions of dollars in misappropriated funds. This is where the money is going. It is not staying in the hands of the little parasite. It is going to the large parasites, and the large parasites are as much Republican as Democrat. And so that is the reason that this continues the way it does. And that is why there's absolutely no hope in the party system as it exists today. There's no hope whatsoever. the Republicans say one thing, but they lie. And the question is, but the Democrats, look, the Democrats do what they say. They want a social welfare state where every citizen is owned by the government and all the citizens are serfs on the government plantation. That is what the Democrats say they want, and that is what they achieve. And the people who vote for Democrats, that's what they want. They want to be slaves. The populations of blacks and Hispanics who have been acculturated to become slaves. But slavery is simply the natural way people want to be. You don't believe that? Let's take a look at all the fawning over the king and queen of England. All those people want to be subjects under the king and queen of England, including most American movie stars and politicians. So that's people want to be slaves. They prefer to be taken care of. They believe in kings. In the Revolutionary War, after the Revolutionary War was won by the forces of independence against the forces of the divine right of kings, hundreds of thousands of colonialists left the United States, primarily from Florida and New York, to live in Canada or in the Caribbean, places that were still controlled by the King of England. It is estimated that 20% of the American population supported the royalist cause. And you have to think about that for a moment. That means you had 20% of the population that during a war of independence sided with the royalists. That 20% of the American people preferred to live under a king than to live free. That says a lot. In our society, what I think is that fully 40% or so of Americans would prefer to be subjects of a king. I would wager that 40% of the Americans, if not more, would like to elect Barack Obama as president for life because they want to have a king. People who cannot accept responsibility, who cannot accept the responsibility of their actions. Now, let us understand that I'm not just talking about poor people. I'm not just talking about poor blacks and Hispanics, but rich white people, Hillary Clinton. These people cannot accept responsibility, and they want to be subjects of a kingdom. Not all these large corporations, Chrysler and General Motors, could not survive without the government plantation. Unions could not survive without a government plantation. The public system of education could not survive without the being slaves on the government plantation. The DEA, the FBI, the CIA, all of our foreign interventions, all of that would disappear without us living as subjects on the government plantation. So that is the epiphany that there is no hope in the Republican Party. They are incapable of understanding what the country is all about. They are simply the big government politicians that belong to the party that is not Democrat. So there you have it. There's the answer. Unfortunate answer. That's the way things are. Now, why does Texas belong to the Union? What is the purpose of it? Well, there really is no purpose of it. The Union needs Texas a lot more than Texas needs the Union. The state of Texas has an economy of $1.3 trillion. There are only 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. There are only 13 countries in the entire world, one of which, of course, the United States, that have an economy larger than that of Texas. Economies smaller than that of Texas are Mexico. Now, Texas has a population of 26 million. Mexico, with a population of 112 million, has a gross domestic product, $200 billion less than Texas. South Korea, with 50 million people. I'm not talking about North Korea, I'm talking about South Korea, with 50 million people, has an economy $200 billion less than Texas. Turkey, with a population of 74 million, which is more than twice, 2.5 times the population of Texas, has an economy about one half that of Texas. Though there are many smaller countries with less, but Argentina has an economy 1/3 that of Texas. South Africa, 1/3 that of Texas. The United Kingdom, with 2.5 times the population, only has an economy 50% bigger, even though it has 2.5 times the population. Brazil, with a population of 200 million, or 8 times the population of Texas, only has not even have double, not even double. With 8 times the population, does not even have double the gross domestic product. So why does Texas need to be part of the union? Well, we don't. We have an economy bigger than almost every other country in the world. There's 150 countries or so. There's only 13 countries in the world with an economy bigger than Texas. So what is the purpose of being a part of the union? What does the union provide for the people of Texas? Well, nothing at all. Is that the people of Texas have been brainwashed to believe that there's something almost as if it was a commandment by God that we be part of the union. Well, the original union was 13 states. Texas was not in the original union. Therefore, the original union, the original United States existed perfectly well without Texas or Colorado or Illinois or Florida or many other states, or most other states, obviously 47 other states. It wasn't like the Revolutionary War was fought saying, okay, we're going to form these 13 colonies, but we have a plan of 50 states. And until we get to 50 states, it will not be the United States in whole. It's complete nonsense. The United States was the United States when it was 13 states. And nobody in the 13 states said, well, we're not the United States yet. Not until Texas and Colorado become states are we the real United States. Nobody said, oh, well, the United States is incomplete with only 13 colonies. Nobody said that. In fact, the United States did not even include Rhode Island. Rhode Island did not sign the Constitution of the United States for 2 years, and not until 1791. So from 1789 to 1791, the United States was 11 colonies, 12 colonies, not 13. And they didn't say, oh, well, we cannot be the United States because Rhode Island didn't join, so too bad, 12 of us agreed, 1 didn't, so we're not the United States. That's not what they said. And so therefore, the United States will survive without Texas. Not for long, but it will survive without Texas. It will survive without Illinois. It will survive without any state, any particular state. The state of Texas produces contributes more to the federal government than about the bottom 20 states. So why do we need to be part of Texas? In fact, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The bottom 15 states don't even contribute $100 billion. So the bottom 10 states contribute less than 1/2 of what Texas contributes, or actually less than. Wait, look at this here. Texas. Less than one half. The bottom 10 states contribute less than one half of what Texas contributes, if that's the proper word, for the federal government. The state of Texas pays more than the state of Massachusetts, Minnesota, and Georgia combined. So the United States needs Texas a lot more than Texas needs the United States. So all of those who poo-poo the notion of Texas leaving the Union, well, you've all been brainwashed, because Texas contributes a vast amount of money to the government, federal government, and gets back what in return? Your Medicaid, food stamps, welfare, a completely corrupt and inept system of immigration, a completely corrupt and inept system of public education, misappropriation of most of the funds in Texas. Medicaid. 70% of funds in Medicaid, which was last year $24 billion, are misappropriated. $2.5 billion of that go to pharmaceutical companies. Most of that money goes for psychiatric drugs. Complete misappropriation. The costs of rehab in Texas, billions and billions of dollars in rehab costs, all fraudulent, all misappropriation of funds. The system of public education, a complete disaster. Largest expenditure in the state budget, $10,000 per pupil. Almost all misappropriated. Almost every school district in Texas has more non-teaching employees than teaching employees. What are they all doing? Well, they're all voting for Democrats. That's what they're doing. So the state of Texas receives $8,700 per person from the federal government. Maryland, each person there receives $15,000 from the federal government. Virginia, each citizen there gets $20,000 from the federal government. Connecticut, each person there receives $15,000 from the federal government. New York, each person there receives $10,000 from the federal government. Pennsylvania, each person there receives $10,000 from the federal government. But in Texas, we get $8,700 per person from the federal government. Even California gets more per person from the federal government than Texas. $9,100 per individual in California receives federal funding. Texas doesn't need the United States. It's the United States that needs Texas. All the immigration problems we have on the border would disappear if we were no longer part of the United States. Belonging to the United States was voluntary and remains voluntary today. We're not required, no state is required to belong to the Union. Every state is free to be independent of the Union. There is absolutely no requirement whatsoever that Texas be part of the United States. Now, the great fascist Abraham Lincoln launched a war against the southern states in order to maintain his fascist empire. And that's the only reason he did it, and don't think it was anything else, nothing to do with slavery or liberating the black person. That's just a canard. That was not his intent at all. In fact, in his inaugural address, Abraham Lincoln said that if he could preserve the Union by maintaining slavery, he would do that. But his goal was fascist. That is why Lincoln was admired by Adolf Hitler. So we have this fascist regime, this fascist tyranny in Washington, D.C., where our federal congressmen and senators do not represent the individuals of the state, but are emissaries from the federal government in order to keep us, the people, under control. They steal your money, and then they'll only give some of it back to you if you do what they say. They steal your money. Oh, you don't want to be part of Medicaid? Well, then you're not getting your money back. Oh, you don't want to have a public school system the way we want it, indoctrinating the children to be skillless drones? Well, then you're not getting the money back. Oh, you don't obey our highway rules, then we don't give you the money to build highways. So they take the state of Texas's citizens' monies, they confiscate it through force, and then only give it back if the state and its people knuckle under to what the federal government wants. And that's the way it functions. And we think that's good. Now, I can understand. But the parasites in Houston and Dallas and San Antonio, like the Castro brothers in San Antonio, those parasites, they want to belong to the union. Because if we didn't, then the parasitic class would be exterminated. But the parasitic class votes for the people that will keep us within the union so they can keep receiving their unearned largesse. We have to go to a break. 7 on KRV, Talkback, Dr. Lawrence Gelman, streaming live, KURV.com, 1-800-580-8255, 1-800-580-TALK. All right, we're back. 7 on KRV, Talkback, Dr. Lawrence Gelman, 1-800-580-8255, 1-800-580-TALK, streaming live on KURV. My website is talkbackonline.com. Why is there no manufacturing in the United States? Some kind of natural history and inevitable event? Well, there's no manufacturing in the United States, and if you don't believe that, try to buy something in the United States not made in China. Cell phones and computers and all your clothes and pretty much everything else is made in China or some other third world country, all of which at one time was produced in the United States. Why is it no longer produced in the United States? Well, it's because it costs more to produce things in the United States than in other countries. But why is that? Why are things cost more in the United States? We ought to be more efficient, shouldn't we? We have the most technology. We ought to be the most cost effective. Why is it more efficient to produce, or this less costly to produce goods in other countries? Well, the reasons are easily identified. Actually, you have the unions which destroyed the textile industry in the United States by making things so expensive that, making production so expensive that they moved overseas. Now, the expense of the unions is not only in just the outrageous benefits and salaries of the laborer. A far greater cost is actually the pension programs which they created for themselves. That broke the United States textile programs. Why are so many cars in the United States produced elsewhere? For the same exact reason. The unions did that as well. What about product liability? How much does the parasitic class of attorneys that exists by just making up reasons to sue corporations, producers, what does that add to a product? How much does that add to the cost of an automobile or to the cost of a piece of hardware or the cost of a house or anything else? Government regulations. How much does that add to the cost of a house or to an automobile? Taxes. How much does that add to the price of a house, automobile, clothes, or anything else? Well, I would imagine by the time you're done adding everything together, that the cost of a product is more due to things not related to the creation of the product than it is to the creation of the product. I would imagine that the United States could produce computers and iPhones and automobiles far less expensively than any other nation, if you got rid of the attorneys and the unions and the regulations and the taxes. I would bet that the United States could produce cars which are significantly less expensive than they are today, clothes less expensively than are created in China or anywhere else. The modern plants that exist in third world countries were not created by the third world country governments. They were created by American or Western expertise. It is nonsensical to think that slave labor can produce goods less expensively than technology or machinery. That's complete absurdity. The only way that could happen is if the costs of production that are not directly due to technology are so great that even with the efficiency of modern technology, that the production costs are just too high to sustain in the United States. And that's exactly what it is. Why is every urban center, every single urban center in the United States bankrupt? Why is that? How is that possible? Well, it's possible because of unionized public workers that have benefit programs and pension programs which are so enormous that that urban centers cannot sustain themselves through taxes. And by raising taxes very high, that drives the producers into areas outside the cities, therefore reducing their tax base and making their budget shortage even worse. So every urban center is populated by parasites. The producers have moved to the outskirts, or maybe even to other states which have less onerous taxes and regulations. But the federal government creates taxes and regulations for everybody, and therefore that makes it whatever a state can do by reducing or eliminating taxes and regulations, that impact is blunted because of all the federally applied taxes and regulations. So the reason the manufacturing has moved out of the United States is because of the government. The government is the reason that the industry has left the United States. Now, a ripple effect of that is that you have no manufacturing jobs. You don't have any jobs for entry-level individuals. There's no more steel mills or textile plants or automobile plants or television producing industry or anything, or makers of shoes. All that has gone. It has disappeared. And therefore, entry-level jobs are no longer existent. And that puts more people on the government payroll, on the government dole, because they have no entry-level jobs. The cause of all this misery, the government. The government and the state governments to a significant extent as well. The federal government is the cause of almost every single problem that we face as citizens today. The federal government is involved in every aspect of our lives: the clothes you wear, the car you drive, the food you eat, the home you live in, the television that you watch, all of that regulated, taxed by the federal government for no other reason than to sustain the federal government. What do city governments do? I have no idea, other than take money and taxes to sustain themselves, to pay their own salaries, to build their own buildings, to take care of themselves, to pay their own pensions. I have no idea what the city governments do. They spend vastly more on any project than a private firm will do, and it's all shoddily done. It's a complete waste of money, and it's just theft. The only thing that distinguishes the government from the mafia is that the government is legal. Well, what the government does is only legal because the government makes the laws. If the mafia can make the laws, everything that they do would be legal as well. The only thing distinguishing the government from a bunch of gangsters is that this group of gangsters is involved in legislation, and they can determine what is right and what is wrong, what is legal and what is not legal. There's a lot of legal stuff which is not legitimate. There's a lot of legal stuff which is not constitutional. What does legal mean? It only means that it has been done through the authoritative chain. It goes through the Houses of Congress, signed by the president into law. That makes it the law. Doesn't make it legitimate. All kinds of non-legitimate laws in the United States or the world. What, do we think that our politicians are holier than the politicians of Cuba or the politicians of Russia or China? Of course not. We're just as corrupt. In fact, on a dollar per dollar level, the United States probably has the most corrupt government in the world. After all, our economy is double the size of China. People talk about Mexico. You know, the Mexican budget is like $150 billion, federal budget. If they stole every single dime, if the Mexican government stole every single dime of the federal budget in Mexico, it would be a fraction of what is stolen by our government in the United States. Okay, we have Pete calling from McAllen, 7 KRV. Thanks for calling.
Hey.
What's up?
Okay, first on the corruption thing, in talking to some folks from overseas, they've said, look, we're not surprised that you can buy American politicians. The amazing thing is they can be bought for so little compared to folks overseas. And I think there's an element of truth to that. But what I was calling about was this idea of the states and the federal government. Originally, and heck, not that far, when I was a kid, the argument was the reason for the federal union was you had a laboratory of, at that point, 50 states or 48 states that you could experiment with different deals. And if they didn't work, the state would suffer, but not the whole country. The problem that the statists have with that is you have basket cases such as Illinois, California, New York, Michigan, that would clearly indicate, Massachusetts, that would clearly indicate that this is not the way to go. And they want to impose their dreams on the whole place. If you can do a few experiments and prove that these dreams are actually nightmares, nobody in his right mind is going to go for them. Therefore, put the whole country under it, and nobody will be able to see the difference.
Right.
A good example of that is the increase in the minimum wage. Down here, minimum wage $7.25 an hour. Good for an entry-level workforce, for kids getting out of school, people getting started.
Yeah.
Temporary work. Okay. In Massachusetts, for the same type of stuff, say work in McDonald's, and I've seen the ads that were actually in the front of McDonald's.
Yeah.
They'll pay $10 and $12 an hour.
Yeah.
In order to, because they've got so darn much taxes and government overhead that you've got to have that to pay for your politicians up there. That gap. Now the problem then is that people are saying the hell with Massachusetts, come on to Texas, is better living, it's cheaper living. And in order to cut out that differential and that attraction to Texas, you got to make Texas less relatively attractive compared to Massachusetts. Hence this idea of federalizing everything. On a local scale, you talk about Congress being Judas goats. I think the local school board elections are just as bad. They can't say anything about how the kids are taught. If they do, the superintendent will bring them up on Texas Education Agency charges.
Yeah.
So what you've got here is, what purpose is the school board? To get people to docilely go and pay more taxes to pay for the circus.
What is the purpose of the public school system?
It's to create a bunch of people indoctrinated by the people that are pulling the switches.
Okay, so why does Texas belong to the union?
I think at the time.
I mean now.
Now I think it's because folks are unwilling to test whether we can leave the union. It will be a monumental shift.
Okay, here's a better question.
Okay.
Let's just say we were an independent territory, and then do you think that Texas would vote to join the union?
No, hell no.
Exactly right. I mean, who would vote for the union? I mean, okay, let's look at it this way. In the state of Texas, who would vote to stay in the union? The parasites, right?
Exactly.
I mean, who else would want to belong to the union? So, okay, now let me go back. I know you're, politically adept and all that. Let's go back to my earlier assertion, and I'd like to hear what your thoughts are on my assertion that the Republicans benefit more, actually, from these government programs like welfare, public schools, and all that than the Democrats do. Don't you think? I mean, let me ask you this: if let's just say tomorrow, Governor Perry stopped funding Medicaid, food stamps, all these other programs, stop funding all of that. What would all the parasitic class do? What would they do?
Well, you've got two parts of that. One, if you did it overnight, the shock would have people rioting in the streets.
Oh, you buy that? Are you kidding me?
No.
The people you got to be joking. The people that sat on the bridge in Louisiana waiting for the government to drop them water, those people are going to be rioting.
If you cut off,
if they're rioting, they're going to be rioting because the government in Houston and San Antonio are giving them the means to riot.
Well, this stuff, the Rodney King riots, the riots back east, they've happened. The other, I think.
Wait a second. Those riots happened because of the refusal of the police forces in those cities to maintain control. All right.
But you'd still you cut off their food. Somehow you're going to have to replace it.
Why?
In the short term.
Why?
Because you're not going to have people starving in the streets.
You see, Pete, it's people like you that are the problem. I mean, you talk about all the things that need to be done, and then when the way to do it, you don't want to do it because you want to protect the people that are the problem.
No, whoa, stop.
Because you're afraid.
Here's, in the United States as a whole, right now, in the cities, we have about 12 days food supply, total.
Well, there'd be more if the parasites are gone.
No, minimally more.
And why would there be less?
I'm not saying that there would be less food, but what I'm saying is that you just simply the supply chain.
And why would what would happen there?
That's not going to change.
What would happen there?
Well, if you cut off the supply chain.
Right, I'm talking about the supply chain. I'm talking about cutting off funding for food stamps, for example.
No, yes, I agree with it. However, it can't be an overnight deal.
Why not?
For the same reason that when we did the welfare reform.
There was no welfare reform.
Well, they got 40% or 60% off of.
I don't know what you're talking about. There's more welfare now than ever. What welfare reform are you referring to? We're an all-time record high.
In was it 1996 when the Republicans included?
We are more. Do we have more or less welfare today than 1996?
Oh, more.
So what are you talking about? What welfare reform are you referring to?
This was where you had to get work or you had to go out.
I understand what you're saying. There was this surreptitious with Bill Clinton and the Republicans coming together for welfare reform. The fact of the matter is there was no welfare reform. Medicaid got bigger, Medicare got bigger, and food stamps got bigger, the system of public education got bigger, the government got bigger. What welfare reform are you referring to? Just because you read it in the newspaper?
No, just there was one element of this that did shrink. But okay.
What element was that? And I don't even care because it's meaningless. So here you're okay, Pete. I mean, you're afraid to do what needs to be done.
No.
That's what you just said. You're afraid. It's fear. You just said that. You just said it. Fear. They riot in the streets. You said it.
Yes.
Okay.
I did.
So tell me how you're going to do it. All right. How you going to? All right. Tell me how you would get everybody would eliminate the welfare system in the state of Texas.
Okay. First, for aid to dependent children, women who have got kids will have a choice. If they're the kids that are in there now, okay, they're grandfathered. The next kid will only get 5%.
Okay, all right. I didn't want to hear anymore. I know, I mean, I don't. It's just the usual. Look, I'll tell you, the day you try to do that, they'll take a case to the federal court, and the federal court say you can't do that.
Well, you're saying in a perfect world, how would I do it? So I'm saying in a perfect
that's not a perfect world.
No federal court.
You don't know what you're talking about. I mean, I don't want to be rude here, but I just really kind of see what you are. You're just the way the Republican Party is. Okay, I mean, that law would never get passed because right away the Southern Law Poverty somebody or other would file a suit, and then the state would be prohibited from doing it. So I mean, that's realistic. That's not practical. You talk about this nonsense. Look, the way the system is set up is to benefit certain people, all right? That is not going to go away by doing it in a piecemeal manner. You don't win a war by knocking off, a few privates here and there. You win a war by total war. Okay.
On that basis.
Your piecemeal approach is the way we lost Vietnam.
No, but that's a separate story.
No, it's not. It's exactly the same story.
If we are going to change this country, and I buy your argument that you'd be in court in 5 minutes, what it's going to take, and this is probably in the cards, is you're going to see a complete economic collapse. The currency's going to go to hell in a handbasket. We're going to have a repeat of the German inflation 21-23.
Right. And what happened there?
At which point the whole place is going to come to a screeching halt. And at that point, perhaps, we will have people's attention.
I know what you're talking about. I have no idea what you're talking about. I mean, the fact of the matter is, what you got in Germany was a fascist state. That's what came out of it. And what you got in what did you get in Russia? A communist state.
As Lenin said, the best, surest way to destroy a society is destroy its currency, and that is in the works right now. With Obama.
And you don't think we would create then an even more fascist state when that happens here?
I think, and you start with Texas. I think there are enough people in Texas.
I think you're wrong. I think the majority of the population in the United States is a bunch of parasites. I think the majority of people in Texas are parasites. All right? The riots you're talking about, who's going to be producing those riots? The parasitic class. The producers are not going to riot.
No, the riots in Texas, at least in many areas, will stop when the first rioters are shot, not by the cops, but by the folks that have got their own personal weapons.
You've got me completely confused now. Completely confused. You're saying let's not implement an orderly elimination of the welfare system by law.
You said you can't.
You're saying let's leave it go until the state and the country collapse and then rebuild it from there. That's what you're saying.
No, you said when I started laying out how to do it orderly, in an orderly manner, you said no, you're going to get caught with all the lawsuits, which is true.
But you're the one who wanted to do it that way, not me. I say blanket cutoff. You're saying 5% here and 2% there. You don't give them the chance. You don't give them the chance for the federal government to do anything. You cut it off immediately, and that's it. Then when you go to court, when they take you to court, you say, okay, we'll go to court, but we're still not putting back the program back. That's how you do it. But if you do it with a 5% here and a 5% there, then you get this wellspring of movement on the other side. But you're saying rather than cut everybody off immediately, you would let the country collapse and then rebuild it from there. Though historically what happens is historically what happens is fascism and communism. We need to do it the way the American revolutionaries did. They got rid of their paternalistic king immediately. They didn't do it in stages. The Revolutionary War was not won by winning a debate. It was won through violence. And the violent behavior needs to be done in the United States is elimination of all government programs. All right, Pete, have to go. 79 KRV, Talkback, Dr. Lawrence Gelman. Where am I? 1-800-580-8255, 1-800-580-TALK. Don't mean to Pete, but the fact of the matter is that if you're gonna win a war, it has to be a total war. You can't do it in stages. It has to be done. Be back after this break. All right, we're back. 7 Caribbean Talk back on Dr. Lawrence Gum. 1-800-580-8255, 1-800-580-TALK. Streaming live on KURV.com. The website is talkbackonline.com. And we were talking with Pete about how do we get rid of the parasitic class. And I know as a physician, you don't do it one worm at a time. You knock them all out at the same time, and you blast them with everything. No holds barred. Anyway, we have this. Do you know when this thing is? Did you find out, Natalie? Did you find out? Tomorrow at Holy Spirit Catholic Church was on Larkin 23rd Street. Probably the easiest way to find it, right over there. There's going to be a conference, and I think the time is 6. Is it? It's one over to the church. Is anybody going to answer there? So, anyway, I think it's at. I guess I should know this, but I think it's going to be at 6 o'clock. So. Oh, I see. All right. Well, the thing is that it's 6 p.m. Tomorrow, 6 p.m. at Holy Spirit Church, Lark and 23rd Street. And we have that. We're going to be talking about the United States and freedom and the Constitution and where we are at and where we need to go. So I hope people will show up for that. I'm sure it'll be interesting. I'll be speaking. Dr. Rabbi Rosenberg will be speaking, Ron, from Church of the King, the pastor from Church of the King, name slips my mind for a second. I guess my memory is fading over time. Ron Smith, right? Yeah. Was a good guy. He makes great commercials, I can tell you that. I never heard anyone pack in so much information in 60 seconds. I mean, he can get a whole dissertation on the truth. But I guess if you really understand the truth, it doesn't take doesn't take 2,000 pages to do that. So Pastor Ron Smith will be there. And he's real American, believes in American ideology, and is unafraid to state it. So many people have locker room courage, but they don't when it comes out to enunciating their ideas in public. They kind of become reticent. The answer to you eliminate parasites by cutting off the food supply to parasites, or you kill them directly. And what needs to be done in Texas is the elimination of Medicaid. It needs to be in food stamps and all that. Now, there won't be one morsel of food less or one bit of health care less. But remember, all those programs exist just to benefit the rich. Medicaid exists to benefit the corrupt rich in the psychiatric industry and the rehab industry and pharmaceutical companies. The food stamps and free food in school, free lunch programs It's just a large agricultural interest. They're able to dump their garbage food that they couldn't sell anywhere at a higher at huge profits through the government. That's all that stuff is. It's not really benefit for the people anyway. It's just benefit for large interests. The biggest parasite in the United States is the government, and then big industry, General Electric, General Motors, Chrysler. These are the parasites these are the real parasites, not the guy living in a tenement in downtown Houston. No, the real parasites are the government, who take advantage of the poor by keeping them poor and making them dependent upon the state. The union leaders, those are the real parasites. The real parasites are not living in urban slums. They're living in the Hamptons and in Manhattan, in the high rises and in the penthouses, and in Washington D.C. and in Virginia and in Fairfax County. That's where and in the Capitol building. That's where the real parasites are living. Those are the real parasites in this country. So, and their function is to make sure that there's a bunch of people that are dependent upon the government, and that's why they create the system of public education, the media, and all the rest that keeps people dependent. So, let's talk about art a little bit. Why? I talked a little bit a couple of weeks ago about what passes for art, modern impressionist art, abstract art. It's those of you who are listening, what I would like you to do if you have a chance is there are websites like Sotheby's and Christie's, which are pretty interesting because they have these auctions, and it's really neat to see, just for fun, just for looking. And what you can do is you go to Sotheby's.com, and then you look up the auctions. Now there's auctions coming up. There's a 19th century paintings, European paintings, 19th century European art. They're having a couple of auctions in May. They're also having a couple of auctions in impressionist and modern art. Now, what I would like you to do, if you have the opportunity, is I want you to go look at the art in 19th century European art, 19th century European paintings, and look at those paintings in the art. And then go to the auctions or you can go to the Christie's website. Is the same thing. I didn't want to belittle these multi-billion-dollar auction houses. You go to Christie's.com. They have the same thing. They have European art, and then in another auction they have impressionist art. And I'd like you to do that. I'd like you to notice a couple of things. First of all, I'd like you to look at the paintings in 19th century European art. Take a look at those paintings. Take a close look. Look at the detail. Look at the beauty. And it's not just a photograph, because real art, you can bring. It's more than just the surface. The inner person comes out in the depiction. And then look at what is called modern art. Look at these. Just look at Cézanne and Monet's and Calder's and Matisse, and look at all that stuff. Then compare that to Bouguereau, Vibert, Lefebvre, Van Blas, etc. Look at those, and try and tell me that modern art is where it's at. Now, the other thing I want you to notice is the prices. Now, in Western European art, it's not inexpensive. I mean, you may find things which are in a few thousands, but they'll be, 300,000, 500,000, once in a while $1 million, usually not much more than above that. $1 million is about as high as it goes, usually somewhere in the hundreds of thousands. That's a lot of money. I understand. But then look at the modern art. 8 million, 10 million, 20 million, 30 million, 50 million. Mark Rothko. Go online. Look at the Sotheby's auction where Mark Rothko, 3-colored painting, piece of garbage nonsense, like a drop cloth. No, that's Jackson Pollock. That's the drop cloth guy. This is the other guy that just stripes of paint. $60 million, $70 million. You tell me that isn't nonsense. And then you have these art experts telling you the brilliance of Mark Rothko. Look at that stuff. I mean, And then there are people who believe it enough to spend $60 million on that work of art. Well, that's not art. That's droppings, okay? Art, it's like energy, okay? Entropy is the tendency to disorder. What orders things, what makes something ordered is energy. That's physics. Entropy is the tendency, the natural tendency of disorder, the natural tendency of matter, of molecules, of energy is disorder. To make order, to get the molecules to flow down a wire, or electrons to flow down a wire, to take materials and build something, that takes energy. Compare the energy that must have been applied to a Bouguereau painting. Compare that energy which must have been applied to a Jackson Pollock painting. How can you compare? The energy that must have been applied to a Bouguereau painting is of such a much higher level to put things in such an order. And it's all brainwashing, okay? It's all brainwashing. It's to make us, and people actually believe. I mean, you have museums, entire museums of modern art. One time I went to Houston, and there was a modern art exhibit. And I don't know why I did. I thought, because I didn't know what I was going to see. I just knew it was by a famous painter. I didn't bother to do the research, my own little entropy. Which allowed me not to do the research. It was just easier not to do the research than it was just easier not to do research, which takes energy. So therefore, I went and waited in line 3 hours. And an exhibit that I walked through in maybe 10 minutes because it was such garbage. But I can look at a Bouguereau painting forever, and it's beautiful stuff. Or I can look at a Van Blas or a Vibert. Or I'm not an artist. I'm not an art expert. I know I'm very I just know that the little that I know is that it takes a lot more ability, and there's a lot more beauty in this Western European paintings than in this impressionist and modern art stuff. And now I'm going to talk a little bit about stained glass after I take this call from Raul, calling from McAllen, 710 KRV. Thanks for calling, Raul. What's your comment?
Okay. Dr. Gelman, first of all, I look forward to going to the meeting tomorrow on the 28th.
I hope you go.
I'll introduce myself to you, sir. I want to talk about what you had mentioned at the beginning about what's wrong with the Republican Party and things like that.
Yeah.
And I was reading about Amendment 28 of the American Constitution.
Yeah.
Where it's supposed to repeal direct tax on the individual from the federal government.
It is?
Direct. Yeah, it's supposed to. It says the 16th article of the Constitution of the United States is hereby repealed.
What?
Now, the tax, the direct tax from the federal government, which was never in the Constitution in the first place,
right?
It favors the progressive movement, which is what we have right now, and it works against the individual. And since 1964, when the counterculture inserted itself into our government, has come to full bloom now with Obama, and has pushed. There is no more Democrats in my mind. There's only progressives, and it has pushed the Republican Party into the left field of politics with a go along to get along mentality. But in reality, they are also progressives, and they're just interested in money, power, and the concentration of power for themselves and their friends. Instead of being a constitutional conservative that puts God, country, and family first instead of party, self, money, and power. And so right now, the ideological battle in the USA is between constitutional conservatives, a.k.a. the Tea Party, Liberty Council, Media Research Center, the Family Research Center. It involves limited government constitutional conservatives against the progressives, which is the rhinos and the entire other progressive party. It used to be a Democratic Party, but it's not, because all the way up until 1964, even the Democrats abided by the limits in the Constitution of their power. They never tried to take our rights away and attack us and call us.
What about Franklin Roosevelt and the New Deal program?
Oh, he was a progressive. He was.
But that was before 1964.
But the government survived Roosevelt, and it'll survive Obama. But the damage that these people do is I can't figure it out, sir. I just can't figure it out. So,
well, I actually think you have figured it out. I mean, basically, the government is in it for itself. You have these individuals that want to have big government, the progressives, and you mentioned the fact that the Republicans are really government. They're not really. Look, all the forces against big government that want to reduce government, the Tea Party, the Freedom Council, all that kind of stuff. They're all extra governmental agencies. You didn't mention any government. You didn't mention any politician. You didn't mention any party, particularly maybe the Libertarian Party, but you didn't mention any. But the major parties are all in for big government. So, but the other thing is, why do you want government to survive? I mean, you say government survived after the New Deal. Well, yes, of course it did. The government got bigger than ever, and the government is bigger than ever today. I mean, the government is going to go on until the country is destroyed. So, I mean, why do
is that their ultimate goal? Because, I mean, if you think it out to the ultimate end, it seems like that's where we're headed, to the road of destruction.
But that's what
I for myself is like, why would I want to commit suicide? It doesn't help me.
Well, no. So you see, the government doesn't care about the welfare of the people. The government wants to enslave all the people. Look at, I think, communist Cuba is a perfect example. You have the government over there led by the fascist Castro. And the most important thing for him is his own personal welfare and the government's welfare. And so they figure they would much rather have a weak, a decrepit country with a people living in misery. That's what they prefer. They prefer that rather than and stay in power rather than have an independent citizenry. So you have figured it out. I mean, you make it sound like you think that the people in politics, that they make no sense, that it's not logical what they're doing. Well, first of all, you have to understand they're gangsters. Right off the bat, they're gangsters. And the only thing that's important to them is that they get what they want while they're alive. If the country, do you think Bill Clinton or Barack Obama cares that what they're doing now will destroy the country in 50 years? They don't care. Even if they were told that for sure, they will still do what they're doing because they only care about themselves right now, for themselves right now. I mean, that's all they are. So
we're just going to have to organize ourselves better than them.
Well, that's what.
Vote them out.
Well, the thing is, where's the option? You say, let's vote out Barack Obama for what? To put in Romney? Let's vote out George Bush to put in Kerry? Let's vote out, they get replaced by the same. That's the problem. You vote out one person, and he gets replaced by someone who's no different. So,
well, like what they did on changing the rules at the RNC convention to cut out the Tea Party. I have faith in the Tea Party, which to me is the actual we the people exercising our right to vote.
Yeah,
I would consider Ted Cruz and Paul Rand, even Michelle Bachmann with her witchcraft and all that stuff, because at least they're going to rule within the limits of the Constitution and not attack our rights.
Yeah, but they don't even control the Republican Party. But they don't even control the Republican Party.
Right.
And as long as they're in the Republican Party, they're going to be like the odd man out. Okay. Well, thanks a lot, Raul. I appreciate your thoughts. I'm going to take this call from Jack, 7 KRV. Okay, Jack, what do you got to say today?
Well, your caller and you are touching upon something that I've been thinking about for a long time, and it's the idea that the U.S. federal government and the United States of America are the same thing. We've been brainwashed. At one time, I thought, oh yeah, the U.S. federal government is the United States of America. The United States of America is the U.S. federal government, and then I've come to realize that that's not true, and that a collapse of the U.S. federal government is not a collapse of America.
No, it's a regeneration of America.
Amen. I think that Albert Einstein would have agreed with you in terms of your concept on entropy, the theories you were discussing earlier, and how things break down, and that's the natural state. Someone mentioned to Albert Einstein, it was a discussion of atoms, and the electrons were moving around. They knew they were moving around, but they couldn't detect a pattern. And someone said, well, the movement of the electron in the atom is random. And Albert Einstein said, no, God never does anything randomly. And so I think that when we have God in our civilization, in Judeo-Christian civilization,
what is God? God is making order out of disorder. Isn't that what Genesis is? Making order out of disorder?
Amen. And when you want to attack Christianity, Judaism, Judeo-Christian civilization, which is Western civilization, when you want to attack that, you can either attack it by attacking the various products of Western civilization, like the art, for instance, or you can attack the religion directly. I think that what we're seeing here is a disintegration of art, but I think part of it is a product. The disintegrated art is a product of the disintegration of the civilization, but I think it's also being pushed by forces who find Judeo-Christian ethics, morality, and a God-centered world something that they can't live with.
Well, just because man can do something doesn't mean that he or she should. After all, we're always the thing that separates man from the rest of the animal kingdom is that our reach exceeds our grasp. We live beyond what we are at the moment, or we try to achieve beyond what we are at the moment. Look, a tiger lives today exactly the same way that the tiger lived 10,000 years ago. Obviously, man does not live today even as man lived a year ago. We actually live differently than we lived before. And that requires order and energy. As you're saying, when man abandons the environment, the jungle takes over the structures. And so therefore, but what do the progressives, as they are called, want? They want relativism. In other words, if you can murder the in utero infant, you ought to be allowed to. If you can be a pedophile, you ought to be allowed to. If you can be a homosexual, you ought to be allowed to. Whatever you want. Whatever you want. And that is barbarism. That is not civilization. That is barbarism. The idea is you have to do the way things are. You have to maintain a truth. You have to maintain a truth. But, as a human being, the only way we can advance our civilization is by imparting energy into it. But progressives, they want to allow you to do whatever you want to do, and that's relative, and everything is equal to everything else. In other words, Islamic honor killing is as legitimate as Christian charity. that pro-choice is the same as pro-life, or the same, or is equivalent as far as morality. So that's there's the battle right there, and the government takes advantage of that by promoting that, because those who are progressives cannot sustain themselves. Homosexuals cannot sustain themselves, can they? It's not possible, right? Can't procreate. And so therefore, it takes the government to allow them to adopt children, right? I mean,
right.
So without all of these, I don't know what's the word, which are all these perversions, can only be allowed through government. Pedophilia cannot exist without government. Slavery cannot exist without government. Unions cannot exist without government. And it's not a mistake that I'm hooking up all these three illegitimate activities together: pedophilia and unionism. So,
well, Dr. Gelman,
yeah,
a people, a civilization that kills its young is in the throes of self-destruction.
Well,
that should be so obvious.
But there's a couple of reasons for that. One, I mean, there's a couple of, first of all, there's the psychology. And the psychology that says human life is meaningless. Well, what kind of society is that?
That's a culture.
Why does Thomas Edison create the light bulb? To get rich? No. He does it to advance mankind. Why? For the future, right?
Right.
For future generations. That is where greatness is, those who create for future generations. Government doesn't believe in that. Government only believes in taking care of itself right now. So people who don't believe in life, they don't believe in future generations. So those who believe in abortion on demand, these are not people who advance civilization. These are the people that retard civilization. That is why. What comes out of so-called liberal arts thought? I mean, what comes out? The Nobel Peace Prize. Who gets that? Barack Obama, Yasser Arafat. Who gets? Compare that to the prizes for physics and things like that. If you look at the real world, or if you look at the scientific world, all that is done there that wins the Nobel Prize, for example, are things which advances society, advances civilization. What in literature that has won a Nobel Prize has actually advanced literature? What Nobel Peace Prize that has been given has actually advanced civilization? None. Quite the contrary. It's probably driven civilization backwards. And so, why? Because one is grounded in reality, and the other one is grounded in fiction. Homosexuality is fiction. Obviously, it's got to be fiction. That is not what we're about. What is the definition of a perversion? The definition of perversion, go to the dictionary, definition of perversion is an object doing something other than it was created for, than it is made for. That's perversion. That's what perversion is. Well, does not homosexuality then, isn't that perversion? By definition, yes. Am I saying homosexuals should be put in jail? No, I'm not saying that. But for our school system to promote perversion as an acceptable alternative lifestyle, that's perverted. All right? Perversion is that you can kill the in utero infant. Look at his trial with this guy Gosnell. Don't you find it interesting? Now look at that lawyer. Look at that lawyer, right? Look at that lawyer. I mean, there's your American system of jurisprudence. Here's a guy that says that by killing an in utero infant before it takes a breath, before the infant takes a breath, or that movement. I mean, look at their logic. That infant, before Dr. Gosnell intervenes, you know the case I'm talking about, right?
Yes.
That abortion clinic. Okay, that abortion clinic guy. Who, by the way, killed black children. Where's Jesse Jackson today? Okay, I mean that individual killed essentially black children and children of the poor. Where's your progressive movement? Anyway, so no one doubts that infant was alive before Dr. Gosnell intervened, right?
Right.
No one doubts that. But here you have a lawyer saying that that's not a human being because when the baby came out and he said, just because the baby moved or took a single breath doesn't mean that baby was alive. I love when attorneys talk about biology, okay? I mean, it's laughable. Unfortunately, the judge is an attorney, so there we have a problem because they don't understand. For those of us who are physicians, the statements being made by the attorney are so absurd and ridiculous. It's amazing that any person of intelligence could actually sit there and listen to it. I mean, to me, it's out of order. For you to be able to sit there and say, just because the baby took a breath or just because the baby moved, that doesn't mean the baby was alive. But no one doubts that that baby was alive a minute before. No one doubts that. The whole thing is such a bunch of nonsense. Here's this guy, Gosnell, who murdered children, who was a Nazi, who murdered innocent black children. I'm going to tell you something else. If the mothers knew what was being done, they wouldn't have allowed it. But they get brainwashed into thinking, oh, it's not a human life. It doesn't really matter. You can always have another baby, whatever. It's just, to me, completely sick and amazing. We'll see what kind. That guy really needs to be locked up forever, and everyone else involved. But then again, Planned Parenthood has a big gala, and Barack Obama is there giving them a speech talking about how great Planned Parenthood is. 350,000 infants killed last year by Planned Parenthood, paid for with your taxpayer dollars. Anything else?
Well, Western civilization is falling apart, and we see it at the fringes of society beginning to fall apart. We see it in this insistence on bringing people of Islamic origin into this country who are not Westerners. They're not part of Western civilization. We see
no, that's not the problem. The problem is we don't require constitutional principles to be accepted before you become a citizen. Okay, and whether you're Muslim, Jew, or Christian, that's all it takes. You just say to be a U.S. citizen, you have to adhere to U.S. ideology, to constitutional ideology. And if you don't, well, then go back to where you came from. And that's Jew, Gentile, or Muslim, I don't care. As long as you adhere to the principles of the ideological foundings of the nation, then you can be a citizen. And if you don't, and I don't even care if you were born here, I mean, do you think Barack Obama is a constitutionalist? Give me a break. Anyway, you have to go to a break.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for calling, Jack. Be back after the short commercial break. All right, we're back. 7 and KRV Talkback, Dr. Lawrence Gelman. I'll take this call from Jerry and... Wait, do I have to write this down? Okay, Jerry in Harlingen, 7 and KRV. Thanks for calling.
Hello, Dr. Gelman. I appreciate your show. I appreciate your thoughts. A very thoughtful man. And, Dr. Gelman, I just wanted to share with you and maybe the listening public the State Senate Committee on Business and Commerce is currently reviewing, and there's a report on their website. But I have long been concerned about the smart meter, the smart grid issues that are out there, and the effects not just on plant life but also on the humans. And your discussion about abortion and all this is I think, a great opportunity to introduce an even more insidious issue that's going on with the smart grid and the effects that it can have, not just on the plants, which I'm witnessing in my own backyard with the garden. I can't get stuff to grow, and it's just a shock for me that more isn't being revealed as to the dangers of the cell towers, the smart grids, and all this stuff that's out there that's coming at us so fast. And again, I'd just like to see if there's an opportunity for you to bring in some industry experts to openly discuss this for the public's knowledge and awareness, the effects of radiation. I work on aircraft, and I've been involved in this for some time. And I can tell you, I've through my career witnessed many pilots, many maintenance personnel that have come down with cancers as a result of radiation, both microwave and also the radar. And I know the industry tries to deny it. I have family members.
You talking about microwave radiation?
Yes.
But that's not a very, powerful. It's relatively long wavelength, isn't it? How dangerous? What my understanding is that the shorter the wavelength, the more penetration power, the more dangerous. I thought microwaves were of relatively longer wavelength and therefore not to be so concerned about. In other words, like X-rays are a short wavelength. Ultraviolet light is relatively short wavelength compared to visible light. Ultraviolet light is more dangerous than visible light. X-rays is more dangerous than ultraviolet light. In that direction, if you go, why are microwaves so dangerous?
Well, Dr. Gelman, I think the point that I'm struggling with to get out is the combination. It's not just one source. When you combine the sun, you combine all the different elements of radiation that are out there, not just radiation, stuff that's in our water. We don't even know, but yet they're throwing more and more technology out there, and I really don't think the human mind and body is capable. I think it explains a lot of the irrational behavior that's coming up. The current younger generations of kids that are totally exposed to this stuff. I have deliberately avoided it, but yet now that I'm aware that we're completely surrounded by it, I think it is important, imperative that not just folks like you, but our medical communities reach out and explore what's happening to our society as a result of all this technology. My concern is the combination, the convergence of all of this technology, not just one thing.
Well, okay, I'm not saying one way or the other, but the reason our children are so many of our children are adults is, I don't think it's because of radiation. I think it's because of the culture of adultism. When you have Lady Gaga and things like that, Justin Bieber, whatever his name is, or any of these other, I think that's our problem with our society more. But I'm not saying the radiation is not. I'm just saying that our culture is a mess for other reasons besides that. Anyway, thanks for calling and expressing your views. Thanks a lot. Thanks for calling. Now we have, we got Scott here. Scott, 710 KRV. Thanks for calling.
Good afternoon, Doctor. Yeah, you're right. Our society's a big cesspool is what it is. And Barack Obama, he supports Planned Parenthood and abortion. He'd like to see the Muslims completely take over the entire world, and they have 6 babies to our 1.5 babies for the Christians and the people who live in Western civilization here in the United States. So basically, the Muslims are taking over the entire world here, and that's their plan to do it. If they have to do it biology-wise, that's their goal. And Barack Obama, he could care less about babies being murdered and Christians being murdered in other countries, and the man's nothing more than a radical Muslim himself, and that's why we got such a gap between the CIA and the FBI and everything else that has completely have come apart as far as our protection with Homeland Security.
Well, I agree. It's really Barack Obama is an Islamist more because Islam is fascism, I think, than because of Islam per se. The Islam is a fascistly based religion, in which the people are slaves and are not allowed to think on their own. That's Islam. That's the problem. Of course, it's not just Islam that does that. Communism does that. And it's interesting how many, if you look at Islam, fascism, and communism, how many similarities they are, and then how distinct that is from democracy, republicanism, and Christianity. How different, how you can group these things together. So I think Barack Obama loves Islam and is a Muslim. Barack Obama is a Muslim. He likes it because it's a fascist ideology. And I think he likes it more than that, than he believes in Allah. I think that Barack Obama thinks that Allah actually works for him. So I really just don't I don't think it's the religion itself as to the culture of the religion as it's structured, and I think it's a fascist organization, and that's why he likes it so much. And all fascists want to rule the world. Adolf Hitler. All fascists want to rule the world. Stalin. So that's why Barack Obama is a Muslim, not because he believes in the Muslim religion, but because he believes in the Muslim structure of their system, which is a fascist.
Well, Dr. Muhammad was nothing more than a false prophet, and these people are all just completely. Like we talked about a long time ago, we've been infiltrated with all these mosques that are over here in this country, and all these mosques have pretty much been supported by and paid for by Saudi Arabia. And
right, and where does Saudi Arabia get all its money?
From the United States through its oil.
Where is
that we purchase from them, and all oil that's purchased by China, and they've given these mosques and the Muslims basically enough money that it goes down to about $10 per every United States citizen in this country, every Christian, every Jewish person, to try and convert us over, and that's their goal.
Yeah.
And we've been infiltrated by these Muslims and Islam, and they're trying to. They've got so much propaganda. In fact, if you go right down to it, the people that are in the prisons right now. There's probably, I heard there's about 360,000 prisoners that have been converted over to Muslims already through.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, what's more fascist than the prison? Okay, I got a couple more calls here, but thanks for calling, Scott. Appreciate you calling in. Now we have, let's see, who's next here? John? John calling from McAllen, 7 on KRV. Thanks for calling, John. What's your comments?
The biggest deal with attorneys and judges would have been this Pope's monkey trial.
Why is that?
Well, it was all predetermined before the trial took place how it was going to end.
Yeah, but what was so big about that? What was so important about that?
Well, I mean, it just shows you what can be done. There was a judge and William Jennings Bryan, and and when it was all said and done, there was a $150 fine. But then another one would have been, I forget, this may have happened in New York. Now, the guy was defending himself. I forget the deal. And he put the witness on that he shot, and then he said, who shot you? And he said, you did. And the judge says, then this is either going to be a mistrial or you're going to have to get yourself an attorney. So there are times when you're a damn fool or an idiot for defending yourself.
Well, they rigged the system that way, but I mean, look, attorneys are prostitutes. They will do anything for money. Okay?
Oh, they will.
I mean, that's it. I mean, they'll do anything, they'll say anything for money. What's a prostitute? Okay?
They might try to get that guy off in Boston on Miranda rights.
There's no such thing as a Miranda right. That's just made up by a bunch of judges.
I know. You have the right to be silent and all that. And
look, the bottom line is that it highlights the gross incompetence of the Homeland Security, of the FBI and the CIA. It's it's how incompetent our officials are. You must remember, though, the FBI, the CIA, and all our government agencies are not there to protect the American citizen. They are there to control the American citizen. Anything else?
Well, the other thing is the ACLU. I mean, they're
the what?
The ACLU, another.
Oh, the ACLU, founded by communists, supported by communists, attacks religion. Sure, the ACLU is nothing but an arm of the Communist Party. That's all that is. Yeah, it ought to be banned. It ought to be banned from the country. Except the government loves it because the government loves the ACLU because the ACLU helps the government with what the government wants to do. Okay, John, thanks for calling. Appreciate it. Now, I guess we have Mark. Mark calling from McAllen, 7 on KRV. Thanks for calling.
Yes, good afternoon, Doctor. I love your take on the how they use all the different forms of, like communism, Islam, fascism. It's all the same, and the politicians basically ride on that. But I think that basically Obama or any of the President Bush also he's a front man for the shadow government, and those are big corporate interests, mainly financial interests, that are constructing our laws. And I wish that you would do a lot of research on the concept of Agenda 21, which is the United Nations Agenda 21, Agenda for the 21st Century.
Right, but I
hear that the state of Alabama passed a law to outlaw any Agenda 21 money from coming into the state. But Austin is actually full of it.
Oh, I believe that. I mean, but look, this is not any hidden conspiracy. The attempt,
totally
whether it's Genghis Khan, Alexander the Great, Adolf Hitler, Stalin, or Barack Obama or Franklin Roosevelt, there are people who want to rule your lives. That's all there is to it. It doesn't take, it's not like a bunch of people sitting together in a smoke-filled room hatching these crazy plots. The United Nations was created in order to implement a one world order run by a bunch of bureaucrats. The European Union was created for a one world order run by a bunch of bureaucrats. There's nothing secret about it. There's nothing to read in whatever 21 there. I know what's in it. Who cares?
But that's the impetus of a lot of votes on these laws. And
well, of course it is. I mean, what's the surprise?
Another thing, too, is that the insider trading laws that apply to stockbrokers and other people investing now, after last week, is legal again.
Look.
And that's how a lot of these politicians are manipulated, is because they're taken into the back room and they're showing how to become millionaires by passing laws and different things, and it's legal.
Yeah.
Obama.
Well, of course. What? But what's the surprise?
Well, it's just injustice, and it's destroying our country.
That's right. You're right. That's true. But they don't care. As long as they can be enriched, they don't care.
Well, I wish that we could vote these people out, because.
But like I said, go ahead. You can vote them out, but who are you going to vote in?
Yeah.
I mean, there's the problem. Where's our side? Where's our side?
Well, we better wake up, or we're going to be living in a Soviet-style country where a lot of good men are going to lose their lives.
Well, what makes you think we don't live in a Soviet-style country today?
Well, we do. It's accelerating. I listen to Infowars.com quite a bit, and I haven't found anybody, besides you, that actually say it like it is more so than Alex Jones. And, I just want to say, keep up the good work, and your eyes are open, and you're right. And I wish that the public would wake up.
Well, that would be good, but then if they did, I wouldn't have to be doing this program. Thanks for calling. So we need to get off of this tact where there's Rockefellers and Kissingers sitting in a room somewhere in Bilderberg coming up with these nefarious schemes. It's as open as human psychology. It is natural human psychology. Nothing new. Rockefeller was born after the King of England. The fact of the matter is, the King Henry V or Henry VIII or whatever Henry you want to talk about, or any of those characters. There are individuals and groups who want to control, who want to enslave, and it doesn't matter what language they speak or what country they live in, and they get together as they've then done throughout the world, throughout history. What is an alliance? What is an alliance between countries? It's governments coming together to control their populations. That's all it is. That's all it is. So there's nothing new here. We have to understand that it's the psychology of the average politician that wants to control your life. And whether their name is Roosevelt, Rockefeller, Barack Obama, it doesn't matter. The psychology is identical. There's nothing different. You read about Barack Obama, he's no different than Henry VIII. or Stalin or Lincoln or Hitler or Genghis Khan or Castro or Mugabe or King George III or anybody else that aspires to enslave people. Now we have Charlie calling from Harlingen, 710 KRV. Thanks for calling.
Yeah, Lawrence Radio.
Okay.
Yeah, this is Charlie from Harlingen. I'm the one running for Harlingen School Board.
Oh, I hope you win for no other reason than you listen to the program.
Well, you just asked the question, where are our guys? Who are you going to put in? You vote out their people. Where are our guys that you're going to vote in? Well, hopefully I'm one of those guys. I'm running to lift up the name of the Lord Jesus Christ, who's our only hope.
Okay, why? Why?
What now?
Why?
Why?
Yeah, why?
Because the public school system right now, they're only relying on man-made wisdom, and they need the
government wisdom.
Knowledge. What now?
Government wisdom.
Oh, well, which is man-made wisdom.
Right.
And they need to acknowledge Jesus Christ as the Lord of the public school system. Not only the public school system, he's the Lord of the universe. If he's the Lord of the universe, he is the Lord of the public school system.
But I understand what you're saying. But what makes that better? What makes it better to believe as Christ as the superior power versus government? What's better? Why is that better? I mean, what makes that better than the government running the show? Government says they should run the show. Government
is big government is inherently evil.
Okay.
Although our big God is inherently good. And that
okay. I don't mean to be a pest, but what do you mean by evil and good? Okay, because abortionists think abortion is good, right? So I mean, what do you mean by good and evil?
Okay, the big government wants to control.
Yes.
And God wants to set people free. That's why Jesus Christ died.
Okay, that's your point. There's your point. That's the point you have to make. In your campaign, that's the point you have to make. The government wants to enslave you, and Christ wants to make you free. And that's the point you have to make. Otherwise, people will say, oh, he's just a religious fanatic. He's just a Bible thumper, like Bill O'Reilly said. You're just a Bible thumper. So that's the point you have to make. What is the reason? Because Hitler can say, you need to listen to me. But why? I mean, why should or we shouldn't? And you're exactly correct. You want to listen to Christ because Christ wants to make you free. Government wants you to be a slave. And there's your point. And I have to go. Thanks for calling.
Okay.
Be back next week. 7 at KRV, Talkback, Dr. Lawrence Gelman. Thanks for everyone who's listening. Never got around to stained glass. Maybe we'll try to do that next week. 7 at KRV, Talkback, Dr. Lawrence Gelman, home of the air microphone. Thank you for listening.